Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it's that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, a creative content right here in Chesterfield. I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Now, it's not usual for me to do a podcast with somebody who is more accustomed to being around microphones and cameras and things than I am, but I am very glad to be able to do that today. I've got a special guest here, Bailey Sheetz, who is a aspiring actor, an actor. I don't even know how to describe it, but first off, Bailey, welcome to the podcast, sir. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
I'm very glad to have you. Obviously, this is a really cool story in and of itself, right? To have somebody your age at 13 who is getting into this business, doing fun things, having experiences that a lot of older actors would kill for, right? Would just love to have the opportunity to work with the talent you've worked with, to do the things you've already done. But I also think it's kind of interesting to what's the balance like between that and sort of being a kid. So I appreciate you coming on. Normally when I introduce folks, I have them talk to me a little bit about sort of their background, and then we get into the nuts and bolts of whatever it is they're here to talk about, whatever event or whatever cause or those kinds of things. For you, your background is kind of the focus of what we're going to talk about. So let's start here. How would you describe yourself and your background as an actor?
Different.
It's a good word. I like that. And different in what ways?
Just how I started. I was on Little Big Shots in 2020, and it kind of all started from there. And usually you see people, starting and working their way up.
Right.
This just somehow kind of fell into place.
And it kind of started. With vacuum cleaners, right? Because I think that's such an interesting little wrinkle to this, which is, I guess, let me ask it that way: how did vacuum cleaners kind of play a part in you being ultimately going to LA and doing all the things that you've done so far?
Well, when I was younger, I was really into them, and I collected them, fixed them, everything. And it's kind of slowed down, but I still definitely work on them.
Okay.
But I think people were always fascinated by that from a kid of my age doing all kinds of stuff, collecting. And I think people were really interested in that. And when I was on Little Big Shots, I got an agent. It just all kind of fell into place.
Now let's explain. How would you describe what Little Big Shots is for folks who maybe aren't accustomed or aren't aware of it?
It's a really good show with just kids talking about their talent or what they're interested in. Right.
So you go on, you talk about your talent, your passion for, fixing vacuum cleaners and doing those kinds of things. And next thing you know, you've got an agent. At what point in that whole process did the idea of being an actor really sort of catch fire for you? Like, was it something that just sort of happened for you, or had you been thinking about that kind of work and doing that kind of stuff even before that?
I don't think there ever really was a thinking about it. I think it just happened. And actually, before I was on Little Big Shots, everybody was like, okay, so do you want to do that? At first, I didn't even want to do it. And, we thought about it for a while, and I went on, and I just kind of rolled.
Yeah.
And after that, it just all worked out. It just went.
You just kind of rolled. I like that. In terms of the way you approach acting, did you have to, at first, acting coaches, how did you sort of get used to the idea of doing it even before you got a chance to actually do it?
There was nothing, actually.
Oh,
I
cool.
just did it.
So you just got out there and just learned your lines and did your thing. In terms of the experience of booking your first real thing, take me through what that experience was like and how it felt to know you were up for something like this and then for it to work out the way it did.
What was the question again? I kind of got lost.
So in terms of the process of getting your first, this first big thing, right? What was it like? So you obviously you auditioned for it, and then there's that time where you're not really sure way it's going to go, and then you finally find out, yep, you got the part. What was that process like? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it stressful? Were you trying to put it out of sight, out of mind? What was that time frame like for you when you were sort of waiting to hear?
So actually, I had multiple auditions before this because I pretty much right after Little Big Shots, I got an agent and I started auditioning, and I had a tiny little voiceover role as Squirrel in the Apple TV series Duck and Goose.
Okay, right.
So I was kind of used to you wait, and then sometimes you just don't hear anything.
Right.
And I was actually sick at the time I auditioned for Unfrosted.
Oh, wow.
I had a runny nose, and we're like, all right.
You had to play through it.
We'll just do it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I was really testing my acting skills at that time. And I just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
And I may have looked awful and sounded kind of stuffy, but we waited, and it was, 2 months, I think.
Oh, wow.
We didn't hear anything.
Mm-hmm.
Then my agent's like, okay, Jerry Seinfeld wants to do a callback with you.
Okay.
And even if you don't get the role and you get a callback, that's still something to be proud of.
Yeah. An incredible experience, I would imagine, too,
and
right?
Even then, the casting director will say, all right, well, we may not want you for this part, but there's another part, or I'll remember you for something else.
Right.
So just getting a callback is amazing.
Yeah.
But for a while, we just waited and nothing happened, so we forgot about it, pretty much.
And then one day the phone rang?
Yeah.
Who actually told you that you got the part? Was your agent? Was it somebody from the production? How did you hear?
So originally, Jerry Seinfeld, I think it was a Sunday night, we did the callback.
Uh-huh.
And at the end, he's like, wouldn't it be cool to talk to your children, grandchildren, show them that you did this?
Right.
If you got the part? You never hear that. It's usually thank you, bye. And they're gone. So hearing that from Jerry Seinfeld was like, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
And turns out I got the part. And I think it was during a school day. My mom came up to me during class because we were all in the same building at one time. Mm-hmm. She's like, you got the part? And I'm like, what part?
That's great. Now, all right, so you find out you're going to do it. What was the time frame like between when you knew you were going to go and when you actually went? Like, how long did you have to sort of sit with it? And was there a lot of prep work going into it? Or what was that process in between when you heard and when you went? What was that like?
The biggest thing is planning ahead with your schedule. Like, my agent just called us, and it was towards the end of the school year. I was in 5th grade at the time, and she said, all right, are you available? Day after school is when we flew out, and they flew us out. It was 3 weeks, not 3 weeks exactly, but...
Remember, I got you. Roughly 3 weeks, yeah.
Well, yeah, in between that time period during the summer of 2022. So it's been 4 years. No, not 4 years, 2 years of waiting.
Yeah.
For it.
And so in the process of sort of going out there, how wild was it to actually be doing the job? And what I mean by that is, I can imagine as the idea of like, oh, it would be really cool to be in a movie, or it would be really cool to shoot a movie. But then when you're actually doing it, how did that compare with what you expected it to be? What was it like in contrast between what you thought it would be like and then what it actually was like? What stood out to you about that, the differences there?
Well, being on Little Big Shots, I had already experienced, getting mic'd up, getting ready, going out, live audience. But this filming a full-on movie was a big surprise. I mean, we had the regular old, all right, here's the studio, you're going to get dropped off at this place, go in. But when they started filming and, people were directing, and because Little Big Shots was totally non-scripted.
Right,
You just went.
You just went, right.
And doing this was a different world.
Yeah. The lines and knowing your part and stuff, how hard was the memorization and because it's not just knowing what you're supposed to say, it's also understanding, what your character's feeling and thinking and interacting with the other people in the scene and stuff. How was that part for you? Did you have a lot of like background in like, I don't know, theater, plays? What was it like for you to learn that piece of the whole thing?
There wasn't really anything before Little Big Shots or anything. So going out and, memorizing for auditions, for auditions, it's pretty hard.
Right.
But when you go out to do it for a movie, you pretty much become your character for a while, and you really get into it. So you understand, oh, well, Butchie would have said it that way.
Uh-huh.
And you really just kind of get the feeling of that character. And once you're acting it out with everybody else, you really just kind of get it quicker than just memorizing off of a script because you get the feelings from everybody else.
Right. There were other kids in this production. Do you think that helped you at all to sort of have other kids who were sort of going through something similar in terms of all of the different sort of pieces that you were probably going through too? Was it nice to have some other kids out there with you?
Yeah, it was really nice because if it was just me, I don't know what I would have done. But
you were like the one kid in the movie, you know what I mean?
But being out there with my co-star Eleanor was wonderful because, we had dinner with them. Mm-hmm. We could still be kids and film a movie.
Right. Now, your family is out there with you the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine that there were so many hours during the day, and I'm guessing that, and I should probably be up on this, but I'm guessing there are rules on terms of how long different kids, different age groups can film in a day and that kind of stuff. So I'm guessing you guys got a lot of time out there together to do other stuff too. What are some of the things that you guys got to do, or was it almost all work all the time? Were you focused on that?
It was just Mom with me for the first week. We were like, okay, this is what are we doing? Luckily, my co-star, her mom had some experiences with it, so we could we weren't just standing there.
Right. You could piggyback off of them a little bit, right?
We could. They helped us a lot, but it was just my mom for the beginning.
Yeah.
Then I actually celebrated my birthday.
Okay.
My 11th birthday while I was out there, and that was an experience.
I bet, yeah.
But my dad flew out for that, so we were able to do some things. I was actually off on my birthday, so
that's cool.
We toured around a little bit and had some fun.
Cool. So you go, you shoot the movie, you finish up, you come home. Was it weird to come home and be done with this whole thing? Was it odd to sort of be in that experience and then, all right, it's over and you come home? Like, what was it like to sort of come back to, like, quote unquote, the real world? What was that like for you?
Well, there's always somebody with you while you're doing it. Always somebody helping. All right, are you okay? Do you need a bottle of water? Do you need a snack? That goes for everybody in this movie or involved in some way. Mm-hmm. So going from that and coming home, it's like, okay, what do I do now?
Nobody's offering me water right now. What is this about?
And it usually, being on a schedule, that's helpful. I'm going to be here at this time doing this.
Right.
And when you come home, it's like, all right, what am I doing?
Yeah. It takes it, because as a parent, nothing bugs me more than when my kid says to me that she's bored. Because I think that's a universal parent thing. Like it really drives us all up a wall. I can imagine though that at some level you probably felt that way even when you weren't actually quote unquote bored. How long did it take to sort of sink in though that you had done this thing even before it came out? And there obviously was a lot tied to the premiere, which we're going to get to in a second. But just the idea that this thing happened, how has it even sunk in now that this thing did happen and that to Seinfeld's point, this is a thing you can tell your grandchildren about someday, that you celebrated your birthday while in the midst of shooting a movie. Has it sunk in at all that this actually happened and this was a real thing and not just a dream, so to speak?
A lot of people have asked me this question, and at this point, it's my job. That's what I do. So, my first movie, that's really cool, but when I step back and look at it, I think I've done that, and that's just what I do. Right.
Now, you refer to it as your job. I'm really curious because, not a lot of us decide, hey, this is what we want to do at such a young age, right? I'm trying to think of what I was into. I always thought I would because my dad worked in politics, so I always thought I'll work on political campaigns. I never did that. I went in a different direction. But obviously, you're young kid who's obviously very focused on what it is you want to do. And it seems like the acting thing just sort of came naturally to you, even if it wasn't necessarily something that was on your radar beforehand. How does that happen, right? How do you kind of come to a place where you know what you want to do at such a young age? Do you think is that ever something where you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this or maybe I should do that? Or are you just full tilt on acting now? Like this is what you want to do?
There's a lot of things I'm into, but acting at this point, it's pretty much set that if I have this opportunity and if people out there like me, then I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, you should take advantage of it. I got you. All right. So in terms of, you mentioned sort of the idea of, being able to do this and sort of stay being a kid. What's the experience been like since the premiere? Obviously, you go out there. I looked it up on The Wire today just to see how many photos there were from the premiere. And the amount of like stars, talent, however you want to frame it, that were at this thing. I mean, it was just like comedy legend after comedy legend, it felt like. And every picture I saw, I was like, oh, that's the so-and-so and that's so-and-so. And there you guys were, right? Your whole family, doing the thing. What was the premiere like? Because I can imagine being, doing the thing, coming home and then going back out there. When you're not really working, you're just sort of there to experience it. What was that experience like, and how different was that from actually shooting the movie?
Long waited. 2 years of waiting and thinking, all right, well, I know my part, but, well, this movie is about Pop-Tarts, but the plots, I mean, we didn't really know. So going out there, I couldn't wait till the premiere because I'm like, I'm ready to see it. I've been waiting to see how it looks.
Right, I want to know what it all looks like when they put it together, right.
Because after a while, after 2 years, when somebody finally, it kind of went out of my, I'm not going to say I forgot about it.
Yeah.
But
you don't remember all the details as well, right?
It wasn't my biggest concern at the time because it had been 2 years. Then when your agent calls you and they're like, all right, premiere dates. You're like, all right, well, fly me out. I'm ready.
So was the story different, I guess, because you probably shot a lot of stuff that ended up on the floor, right? Or whatever they use now in terms of digital analogs. But in terms of what you shot versus what it ended up being, the story, how did it all fit the way you thought it might fit together, or was it a surprise when you saw it all kind of come out?
Most of it went together the way I thought it would.
Cool.
There was one scene that got dropped, but, I mean, of course, it's always a surprise because they don't tell you, it's just, you see it, and that's it. Yeah.
All right, last 2 questions for you. First off, are there you've obviously worked with a number of great talent already. Are there specific actors, actresses that you would love to work with? Somebody whose work you really appreciate, somebody maybe even whose work you try to sort of emulate a little bit. Are there those? Are there any actors, actresses that you're hoping at some point to be able to work with down the road?
There's certain people that you think about wanting to work with, and I'm not really sure yet. But
that's fair.
Most of the time, it's pretty much decided because you audition. Of course, when you're really, really big and popular, that's when you get to start deciding, or that's when you get from the point where you audition to somebody says, hey, you want to be in this movie? They just know how you act.
Right.
But right now I'm at the point where it's pretty much decided.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, last one. In terms of being a kid, how is it hard for you to sort of balance this idea that, right, you know what your job is, but not a lot of kids your age know what their jobs are, right? A lot of them still have a lot ahead they got to figure out. Is it hard to balance this sort of real world side of, what is your job, so to speak, and then also just letting yourself be a kid, going to camps and doing the fun things? How hard is that process for you, or is it something that you really enjoy, that balance between those two sides of you?
I think right now I'm just kind of happy with acting and doing what I do at this time, and I think I plan on doing it as long as I enjoy it. Yeah. That's really what matters to me. And there's a lot of things I enjoy doing, so right now I've pretty much got one that's been decided. So I'm going to keep going with it as long as I get enjoyment out of it.
Cool. Well, Bailey, I really appreciate you coming on the program and talking to me about the whole experience and doing the acting thing. And it's just so cool to me to have that somebody from this neck of the woods can go and do something so unique and have such a cool experience. And I'm sure that you're going to get asked about it forever. And I'm sure that you're going to keep talking about it forever, but I appreciate you coming on the podcast and talking to us a little bit about it yourself. So thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Now, make sure you check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's at Chesterfield VA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield Virginia on Word, and on Facebook, you can check out our podcast page. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Now, make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever it is that you get your shows. And if you're still inclined to give us a rating or review, we greatly appreciate it. As always, a video version of the show is available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website at Chesterfield.gov/podcast. That's also where you can submit feedback anytime, make suggestions, or just reach out to us. You can watch the show on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on the weekends at noon. That's Comcast Channel 98 and Verizon Channel 28. Nicely. Check out Chesterfield.gov/connect with us to find out a number of other ways to connect with Chesterfield County. My thanks to my director, Martin Stith, my executive producer, Teresa, Bonifas, and all the good folks from Constituent Media Services for all they do. And my thanks to you for joining us today. So, from all of us here in Chesterfield, thanks again for making this a part of your day. We'll see you again real soon. Take good care. From blogs to podcasts, and I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. Newsletters to alerts, social media, the latest community news.
Welcome to the latest installment of This Week in Chesterfield.
How to get in touch, and everything in between. If you want to know about Chesterfield County, our Connect With Us webpage has you covered. Chesterfield.gov/connect with us. Connect with us, your source for all things Chesterfield.